Today on Locked On Canadiens, in honor of the anniversary of the return of Jeff Petry to Montreal, let's list some Montreal Canadiens we would actually like to come back.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1361 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that ensures you don't miss an episode, and it really helps us out on the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as @Maybe It's Ian, and I'm joined, as I always am, by Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, we're in peak Kent Hughes is about to strike territory, and that's sort of where I led off the episode with, where we're in the anniversary of Jeff Petry's return to Montreal and subsequent immediate trade to Detroit. But are we any closer to him actually to Kent Hughes actually doing something? Because he was at the Killers concert in Montreal, so him and Jeff Molson were there. I don't feel like there's the same amount of urgency, Laura, if he's out there at these concerts. Do you?
I honestly think that he's working on something under the radar. Last time he did this, I was on vacation. The previous time he did this, I was also on vacation. So I'm assuming since now I'm back from vacation, Kent Hughes is waiting for you to go away in order to pull this trade, which means that it is imminent. It's coming within the next 3 to 10 days.
Yeah, correct. And I joke, Ken Hughes is allowed to go and enjoy his life. Being the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens is not a life of indentured servitude. I just thought it was really funny to see him right up on like stadium barricade with Jeff Molson just watching the Killers at Osheaga. I thought that was incredible.
I honestly, you know what? How many of your GMs are going to Osheaga?
Yeah, exactly. None of them. And honestly, the thought that Kent Hughes would be the one doing that is really funny to me. Like, you would expect like Kyle Dubas might be doing this because he's, the general manager who's probably most likely to be able to skateboard. But like, that's not, it's not exactly the same thing.
I'm trying to imagine I know he's not a general manager anymore, but like imagine Lou Lamoriello at a music festival.
Lou Lamoriello was at Woodstock, so that was his last concert.
Yes.
All right, that's enough. That's enough of our cold open here. Let's jump into some of our news. So we'll talk about the 3 Montreal Canadiens who are headed to Team Canada Olympic orientation camp. We'll talk about a story that came out, an opinion from one Travis Yost regarding Sam Montembeault and the state of Montreal Canadiens goaltending. And as we joked, Jeff Petry's the trade redux, or as I called it, Too Petry, Too Furious, happened exactly 2 years ago. So we'll talk about some Canadians we would actually like to see get traded back to Montreal. But let's start with the Olympic orientation camp. 3 Montreal Canadiens were listed as invitees to that camp. Sam Montembeault, probably the least shocking among those options. But Noah Dobson and Nick Suzuki were also part of that announcement. Are any 3 of those names surprising? Let's just start there.
I would say that Noah Dobson was just a little bit surprising. Canada's defense is stacked. Canada's forward core is stacked. The biggest question mark for Team Canada is their goaltending. And therefore, I am not surprised at all with Samuel Montembeault, especially, him being invited to 4 nations. I think he's part of the Team Canada goalie depth chart, for better or for worse, right? If you are looking at who the top 5 goalies in Canada are at this moment, I don't know if he is technically in that top 5, but philosophically, he is very solidly in that top 5, even I would say maybe top 3 as well, right? With Nick Suzuki, I think that technically and philosophically are 2 completely different things. And philosophically, maybe he is a little bit underestimated, but technically I do think that he belongs, right? I'm not saying he needs to be Team Canada's number 1 center. I don't even think he needs to be a center at all. Team Canada, if they're taking the best players, but I think he needs to be in that conversation. And I think he needs to be, at the very least, he needs to be on the short list before they actually announce the official team. I would be elated to see him on there, but I would also be surprised to see if he makes the final cut. With Noah Dobson, I'm a little bit surprised just because he does not fit the mold that Team Canada likes, right? Team Canada wants a very large, broad person lumbering and hitting. That's what Team Canada's brass loves. I do think that this is an inspired choice. I'm very, very excited that they're looking at skill. I just personally feel that at the end of the day, that old school mentality is going to win out, and maybe Noah Dobson gets left on the outside looking in.
Can I tell you why I'm not surprised that Noah Dobson was selected, at least to this camp? He hasn't made the roster yet, but you know
Are
why?
you going to say it's because he went to Worlds?
Because he went to Worlds, Laura. This summer, before he got traded to Montreal at the end of his NHL season, he went to Worlds, and he did pretty well. 8 games at the World Championships, a goal and 3 assists for 4 points, and a +8. No penalty minutes either, so pretty clean sheet for him at that tournament. I say that in jest, but also like they value that. They want to reward. They want to be able to reward guys who go to Worlds. Like I think that's what's so frustrating about the Suzuki and Worlds conversation that we've been having now for the better part of 2 years, is that I think they wanted him to go to Worlds because they wanted to put him on the team, and then they kind of found themselves in a situation where they're like, well, you didn't go, so we're not putting you on the team, you know?
Right.
And Nick Suzuki wasn't good enough at that point to make that a complete showstopper for them.
Right.
You know, and I think has changed that narrative. It's important to note, and I think Elliot Friedman talked about this on the 32 Thoughts podcast this week, that this list of invitees is not the long list. They're still they are not going to be restricted to who they bring based on who's at this camp. So there might be people who aren't at this camp who end up making the long list. Also with Noah Dobson, I think, you know, he's coming off a down year statistically. You know, he goes from 70 points to 39 the following year on an Islanders team that just was inept at a lot of things. I think what helps Dobson's case in this respect, at least to being part of the conversation, is the fact that Team Canada at the Four Nations, if you remember, were running through defensemen like tissues. Thomas Harley showed up at the tournament and was playing a pivotal role for them in their elimination games. So it's to me like they're gonna want as many shots on goal in that department as possible. Noah Dobson's a great fit. Right shot defenseman, skates well, can play offensively. If you pair him with the right guy on the left side, I think you're looking pretty good. No.
Yeah, I do. I just think that Team Canada, Team USA, they both have this mentality that you need to be hitting, you need to be more physical, and that has been a point on which Noah Dobson has been criticized. And so, if you're looking to just take the best players, yeah, he's a no-brainer. But you know, where in the Olympics, we were talking about in Sochi, we were talking about take the best players, and they were leaving PK Subban off, right?
Right.
So, and I feel like that old school mentality is going to win out. If they want to be forward thinking, then they're going to take the best. They're going to take the most skilled. They're going to take a group of people who are just the best at scoring goals, generating offense, skating around the opponent. Like if that's the game that Team Canada wants to play, I think they can win with it. I just feel that even though it is the Olympics, I just feel that they're going to fall into the trap of trying to be too physical. And then they're going to lose one game in the preliminary round against a larger team or some guys that hit, and it's going to become a national crisis in Canada. It's just how I feel it's going to play out. But at this point, I just think it's really cool that there are 3 Montreal Canadiens who got invited to that because the last time around, we found this out from Nick Suzuki's mom when she was on the show. She let it slip that her son was invited to the previous orientation camp, and then the Olympics didn't happen, and then the NHL didn't send their players the following year.
Yeah. Let's before we head to break here and before we leave this topic, they apparently the thought is, I think, that they have to have these rosters finalized by the end of the year, by December 31st, 2025. The Montreal Canadiens will have exactly 39 games before that deadline. Their last game would be in Florida on December 30th, 2025. Let's just go strictly offensive production. What does Nick Suzuki have to do to get on that team? Like what point total, what goal total are you looking at? You're saying that is undeniable he's on that roster.
Well, like the no-brainer would be over a point per game. Obviously, they can't say no. But I think he still got a shot at 35 points, and I would say maybe 17 of those are goals.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to be part of it is goal scoring more than anything, right? Like he's going to on the regular season he'll be playing with Cole Caulfield, like the assists are going to be there. Um I think it's going to be goal scoring. I think honestly a big part of this might come down to faceoffs
Yeah.
because if he's making that team, it's probably a bottom 6 or fourth line role. Can you prove that you are a guy who we can throw out there to win the odd faceoff?
Yeah.
To not be a liability defensively. We already know that he's not a liability defensively, but like can you continue to prove that you do those things? That'll be a big difference maker as well. As easy as it is to just say if he's got 40 points by then he's on the team. Might be, but I think it also comes down to a lot of those the finer points of the game as well.
The little things.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll leave that there. When we come back, we'll talk about the other guy that's making that is headed to Team Canada camp, and Sam Montembeault, and whether or not he's part of the league's elite goaltending. And we'll get into all of that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburnt at the beach. I use FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. New to FanDuel? New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit fanduel.com to get started. All right, we are back. Let's talk about this very funny story that is out there. Travis Yost of TSN writing fame, he has a knack for writing things that are incendiary, to say it, I think, lightly. Honestly, his food takes aside, he has some pretty bizarre food takes. That's a different show. That's a different issue. We don't need to get into that. But he put out an article on TSN this week about the talent tiers of goaltending heading into the 25-26 season. Tier 1 has the Rangers, Jets, and Islanders, with, of course, Sorokin for the Islanders, Hellebuck for the Jets, and Igor for the Rangers. But he has Montreal among the 9 teams in Tier 2. He has the Canadiens goaltending on par with the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have Andrei Vasilevsky, on par with the Dallas Stars, who have Jake Ottinger, on par with the Vancouver Canucks, who have Thatcher Demko. Before I get into his reasoning for this, that's shocking, right? Like, we don't have to pretend that's not surprising.
So, as you're reading that out, I just am thinking that Travis Yost is a well-known Ottawa Senators fan, and in reading that, I think he's trying to get into Sam Montembeault's head is what he's trying to do with that.
Well, I mean, he has the Sens in Tier 3, which is honestly, I think, surprising because I think their goaltending is pretty good. At least maybe it's a relative thing, right? It's better than it ever has been in recent respects. So maybe we've all just kind of, it's kind of like the this current era or the prior era of the Toronto Maple Leafs, how they were like way better than we were used to them being, but they weren't like some elite team, but we kind of all made that stretch in our head because it was just easier. I kind of feel like that's maybe what we're doing with Ottawa's goaltending.
Can we just really quickly though? I think Andrei Vasilevsky and Jake Ottinger should belong in Tier 1.
This is defamation. If I can be honest with you, but those guys should be so mad about this.
Those guys should be in Tier 1, and then if that happens, then I'm okay with Samuel Montembeault being in Tier 2. But then so should Ullmark be then, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
I think so. This was Travis Yost's explanation when it comes to the Canadiens and their placement in Tier 2. The bet on Sam Montembeault emerging as the bona fide starter has been a winning one. Montembeault was so dominant last year, he finished third in the National Hockey League in goals saved versus expected, plus 31, behind Connor Hellebuck and Anthony Stolarz, carrying his young team back into the postseason. Montembeault is on a team-friendly deal, $3.2 million per year for the next 2 seasons, which should be a big tailwind for the cap flexibility to add elsewhere. That last part, bang
True.
on. Completely. Like that, we thought at the time that was a market value contract for Montembeault. He's outplaying that. Like there's no, I know we talked a lot last year about how he gives up the weird goal every once in a while. He's still head and shoulders like above the market value of that contract. So no complaints there. What I find funny is that stat. Third in the NHL in goals saved versus expected at plus 31, behind Connor Hellebuck and Anthony Stolarz. This is a weird.
Who expected it?
Yes, expected by whom is the question here. I also think that this is funny. Like Sam Montembeault is in this top 3 with the guy who just won the Vezina for the 2nd straight year and the Hart Trophy, the most valuable player in the sport at the moment. And Anthony Stolarz, like you know what I mean? Like I feel like you can look at this as like a word association and just be like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. I think Anthony Stolarz is a great goalie, top 3 in the league, top 2 in the league, because Montembeault is behind him. Nuts. Like I think this stat is valuable, but I think to say like, well, Montembeault's top, and I'm not saying Yost is saying this. I'm saying that this could be construed this way. That well, Montembeault's top 3, he's the 3rd best goalie in the league. I have a hard time making that leap.
I do too. I feel like a lot hinges on the expected part, right? Are you looking at the quality of the Montreal Canadiens defense? Are you looking at the quality of the Toronto Maple Leafs defense when you're talking about it, right? What makes this expected? Like, is it shots on goal? What is it?
Yeah, I would imagine it's shot location. That's a lot of where expected goals come from. And actually, Montembeault's flaws might help him in this category because the goals he gives up are not high expected goals. And if you remember, if you're a regular listener of the show, and I brought this up earlier this season, the whole the distance, average distance per goal allowed, Montembeault was right up there at the top of the league with Connor Hellebuck. That's just how you beat these goalies now, is you find a seeing eye puck that goes through traffic. Sometimes with Montembeault, it doesn't take that much traffic. I don't know what that is, but he'll make 9 incredible saves and then give up a floater from the blue line. That's what you have to expect with that goalie. Maybe get in front of it and somebody block it so he doesn't have to. But I find that to me is the most that is the connective tissue that I'm looking at, is that these 2 goalies are beat the same way. They're really great up close. That's why this goals saved versus expected are so high, because those are high expected goals. When you're that close, you're expected to score. But when you're at the blue line and the expected goal is 0.01 expected goals, that number's not going to hurt that number so much. I wonder if I'm overthinking this or if this is a correct assumption of what this statistic means, but that's what it feels like to me.
It feels like a lot of his argument is hinging on that, though. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, for sure. And goaltending is never in a vacuum. If you're a good team, you probably have a good goalie. If you're a bad team, you probably have a bad goalie. And it's most of the time, either way, probably not the goalie's fault. There are obviously rare exceptions to that, like the Connor Hellebucks, who, I mean, the Jets were a great team, but he would have carried a mediocre team into the playoffs because of how great he's been. If you look at, the Rangers with Igor Shesterkin, like he couldn't carry that team in. He had an off year. Don't get me wrong. He's still a great goaltender, but that team was awful in front of him. So, what's the line? You show me a good coach, I'll show you a good goalie. Like it's kind of the same for entire rosters, right? Like the goaltender is simultaneously so important, and yet you cannot break the bank on a goalie. It rarely works. Sergei Bobrovsky notwithstanding, but that whole team everywhere else took pay cuts to make that work. Does this, heading into this season, like Montembeault has a chance, an outside chance, but a chance nonetheless to be the starter for Team Canada at the Olympics.
Yeah.
If Binnington falls back off, if Aiden Hill doesn't take the reins, if Montembeault comes out and he has a tremendous start to this season, like we're looking at him in that sort of respect. are we then at a point where it's like, is he best served in Montreal? And is he blocking a Jacob Fowler? I'm not getting to that point yet. I'm not doing Caden Primo part 2. I'm not doing
Yep.
Carey Price part 2, although that one worked out okay. Uh, I like. Do you start to wonder of his long-term future in Montreal if he burns too bright?
No, not yet. Not yet. I
Yeah.
think Jacob Fowler, like, I think the Montreal Canadiens are not going to rush him. I think they're looking at that kid and they're like, if this takes 3 years, it's going to take 3 years. We're not going to artificially push him forward, right? And it could take a year, it could take 3 years, it could be a bust. We don't know. But I think Team Canada, because the other thing about this, and it's not a nice thing to say, because we've had we love Carey Price and he backstopped one of those teams that won gold. But like, I feel like the easiest Team Canada job in the Olympics is the goaltender job, because the rest of the roster is so stacked and it's the coaches that need to make the right decisions, right?
Bennington made it look hard, man. He made it look so hard at Four Nations, and we were white knuckling it the whole way, and he was spectacular in that overtime for Canada, and that's all anybody will need to remember about that tournament, right? Like he made it look so tough the entire time.
But like, honestly, truly, like, out of all of the teams, right? Like, being behind Team USA or Team Canada feels like a great, easy job for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Carey Price got a shutout in the gold medal game in Sochi in 2014, but I think he made like 11 saves. Like, it wasn't a busy day for him at the office. You know, like a well-placed trash receptacle probably would have done okay in those moments. And Carey Price, hey, if you're gonna have a goalie, you might as well have the best one on the planet. No one's gonna get mad at you for that. But I think it's very funny that like those teams were so stacked that like nobody was going to beat that team, regardless of who was in net. Oh yeah, by the way, it's the best goalie on the planet right now who's in net. Like, why did we even play that tournament? I'm really surprised that even went through.
Honestly, that was wasn't that the last time they went to the Olympics? Like, I miss it so much. I miss it so much. I want to see it. Doesn't matter if we need to bother or not. I just can't wait.
Yeah, very excited for that to come back. All right, we'll leave that there. When we come back, in honor of the two Petry, two Furious second trade into and out of Montreal, we're going to talk about some Montreal Canadiens that we would want back in a Canadiens uniform. And we're going to announce the winner of our YouTube subscriber contest. You don't want to miss that when we come back on Locked On Canadiens. All right, we are back. And courtesy of a friend of the show, Mike Comito, we're looking at Habs 365. And the entry for today, August 6th, is the Habs acquired Jeff Petry again, 2023. They acquired him from the Pittsburgh Penguins to assist the Penguins in sort of hurting themselves in acquiring Erik Karlsson, who, should have made a really big difference for that team, and it really didn't. Montreal reacquired Jeff Petry with the sole purpose of trading him again. They traded him to Detroit. That experience did not work out. And now Jeff Petry, do you remember where Jeff Petry is right now, Laura?
I think he's in Detroit.
He just left as a free agent. He's a Florida Panther. He took the Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Nate Schmidt role. Now he gets to go in as a guy who never won and maybe, win a Stanley Cup. As much as I'd hate to see Florida win, I'm okay seeing Jeff Petry win a Stanley Cup. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But in honor of that,
20 kids.
Yeah, exactly. In honor of that, because I loved Jeff Petry when he was a Montreal Canadien, but I didn't love them trading back for him because obviously it was clear what was happening there. So I wanted to talk about some Canadiens, former Canadiens around the league who maybe we would like back and maybe would be decent fits on this roster. Do you have one that comes to mind, Laura?
I have two.
Go for it.
And I'm wondering if we have the same ones. So do we want to go in order of like least or most?
Whatever one you want. I have two guys.
Okay. So I think I like the almost equally, but I would like Tyler Toffoli back. Mm-hmm. He's definitely almost at the top of my list. And the one that I want back more than Tyler Toffoli is Sean Monahan.
Okay. Tyler Toffoli was one of mine. I have a Tyler Toffoli Canadiens jersey. I loved that experience in Montreal.
He was great.
Go off on Sean Monahan because I completely agree. He wasn't my next pick, but you're totally right.
Okay, because here's the thing. Like, when Sean Monahan was trying to be the second line center of this team, forced to be the second line center of this team, the situation was not the way it was this year. So like take this past year's Montreal Canadiens, add Ivan Demidov, put Sean Monahan in there, hope for no injuries, and how much better does this team look?
Yeah, they're infinitely better with that player. First
that
of all, just really excited that guy landed on his feet and is making NHL money again, and just such an easy guy to root for on and off the ice. Like a lot of times, like players say it's an honor to put on the Canadiens uniform. I think it was an honor for Sean Monahan to be a Montreal Canadian. Like for us to be like, this guy, we got to root for this guy. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Like totally agree with you there. I felt the same about Tyler Toffoli, honestly. Like that was a model Montreal Canadian, a guy whose time in Montreal was so short, but he made such an impact on the city. He loves the city. The city loves him back. Like a dude I would fall over myself to go get again.
I think Tyler and Kat Toffoli really understood the assignment. Like when I think about Tyler Toffoli and I think about Kat, also great podcast. I think it's called That's Offside. Right? And with Julie Petry, incidentally. I thought that they truly just understood the assignment of what it means to be Montreal Canadiens / a Montreal Canadian spouse. And I think Nick Suzuki and Caitlin Suzuki also embody that. That's not who we're talking about right now, but like I wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, I think that's completely right.
Who were yours?
So mine was Tyler Toffoli was one of them. I completely agree with you there. But the number one on my list is number 24 in your program's number one in your hearts, Phil Deneau. Like I will. There's a lot of things that I will take anger to my grave over Marc Bergevin with. This is one of them. Maybe at the top of the list.
The $500,000?
Man, I am still. It was not a good decision for the team. It wasn't. They were hardballing a beloved player for no reason. Like it was a general manager who was on his way out the door, and on his way out was like, oh yeah, I can't give Phil Deneau this money, but here, Mike Hoffman, I'm going to fire this at you out of a t-shirt cannon. Like it didn't make any sense. And isn't he exactly what this team needs right now? A left shot center who can win faceoffs, maybe play a top six role, maybe play on that second line and be a really defensively responsible option to put in between Patrick Laine and Ivan Demidov, whose defensive reliability is questionable or suspect at best. Like to be able to say, Phil Deneau, you're going out on the ice with them. Oh my God. It's like having just like a super like way better version of Christian Dvorak, and he already knows the market and understands it, and you're going to get more out of him offensively. I get so mad thinking about how they let him go at the margin that they did. It made no sense then. It makes even less sense today. And I would do so many things to have Phil Deneau come back to Montreal. So Phil, if you're listening, make it happen. Request a trade, come back to Montreal. We can make it work.
Yes. We will welcome you back with open arms and give you that $500,000. When you said that, I knew that I had forgotten someone and I was going to be kicking myself. And like Phil Deneau is such a good answer for this.
I mean, he was already a beloved player, and then that cup final run, he like kind of hit folk hero status with the pizza after every round that they won, and just how he very much embodied like the veteran presence on that team, despite not being a grizzled veteran. He played that role though.
Yes.
I very much rue the day that he left. Like this is a mistake that I think they have not rectified. They have not yes, they brought in Dvorak, that's fine, but like they didn't Dvorak was the replacement for both Kotkaniemi and Deneau leaving in the same summer. They never adequately fixed this. And I'd argue today the front office still hasn't fully fixed this. They've tried in certain respects, but they haven't been able to fill the hole that Phil Deneau left. So that's my guy. So if Ken Hughes, if you want to right some wrongs in August, maybe find a way to pry Phil Deneau out of LA. That would be excellent.
That would be amazing. And I think the one thing I will say about this front office is at least they know what the problem is. They know what's missing. They know what they need. And I don't know that looking at the decisions that Marc Bergevin made, I don't know that if he had a good handle on what the team actually needed.
Yeah, totally. All right. let's do our contest. We'll do the drawing for our lovely photos of
Photo,
of
yes.
of Josh Anderson. We're only giving away one of these today. You need to enter, continue to enter, and once we get to 5,000 subscribers, we'll give away the Arbor Jacques photo. But Laura, you ready to pull this up and get this thing going?
I am. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to really hope that there are no inappropriate usernames here, because then we're going to have to do some editing in post. So I'm going to start with first trying to share the wheel of names. If you can see it, please confirm.
You got it.
And you'll see these are all of our contest entries. We got almost 300 of them, and your name will be here. You can't really see it here, but don't worry. Once I actually hit this, the name will pop up on the screen and we'll see who won.
And the winner is
Dodo the Elite. So, Dodo the Elite, I will stop sharing my screen now. We need you to email us at lockedoncanadians@gmail.com and send a screenshot proving that you are a subscriber. And then you will get this picture in the mail. You and Ian can coordinate how the mailing will happen. And you have won the beautiful Josh Anderson photo. So Dodo the Elite gets pulled out, but everyone else stays in the pool, and you still have time to stay in this contest and win Arbor Jacques. All you have to do is subscribe to this podcast and leave contest entry in the comments, and all of you will be entered. So if you've already entered, don't worry about it. We're keeping these names. We're not taking any out except Dodo the Elite, because you've already won. It's not fair. And we will be pulling the name for Arbor Jacques once we hit 5,000. So the faster you get us there, the faster you get the Arbor Jacques photo. So congrats to Dodo the Elite. Please send us an email. And now I think it's time for our trivia.
Yes. Congratulations, Dodo the Elite. I'm glad we didn't have to read an inappropriate name and actually read a really cool one. That's a fun name, Dodo the Elite. All right, we'll do our trivia question for today and get out of here. So last episode's question came out on Monday, August 4th, which is Maurice Richard's birthday. He would have been 104. And in honor of his birthday, the question was, in the 1944-45 season, Richard became the first 50-50 player in NHL history. 50 goals in 50 games in a season that only had 50 games. Which team did Maurice Richard do his most damage against that season in getting 50 goals? Do you remember? Do you have the answer to this one, Laura?
So I just had to guess because I feel like he victimized Toronto a lot, but for some reason, Boston springs to mind.
So it is neither of those teams. It's Detroit, and it's actually not even particularly close. He scored 16 times against Detroit. He scored 10 against Boston, and against Chicago, the Rangers, and the Maple Leafs, he scored 8 times. So 16 against Detroit. They played against each other each 10 times because there was 5 other teams in the league, 50 games, 10 times each team. So 16 goals in 10 games, pretty good for Maurice Richard. Good Sport had the team correct, so thank you for playing. Today's question, in honor of this being the announcement of our YouTube subscriber, this is a visual question. Who is on the back of my Montreal Canadiens t-shirt that I am wearing currently? For those who aren't watching online, it is a jersey of the 2016 Winter Classic. So who is on the back of my t-shirt? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video or send it to us any way you know how, and we will shout you out on the next episode of the show. And that's going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for tuning in and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that ensures you don't miss an episode, and it supports us here on the show, and we greatly appreciate it. For your next listen, check out Locked On NHL. There's no off-season, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Subscribe to Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We are Locked On Canadiens everywhere we are posting things. Primarily Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok. Come check us out there for some extra content along the way. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come back Friday for our mailbag.